Let's go through the basic process. So here we have the Helix, we have a DMX controller, we have two DMX fixtures. So real quick, I'm going to go through the key things that we need to be able to get to the Helix eventually. So before we can actually worry about programming the Helix, we need to have the scenes programmed in the DMX controller that control the lights. So let's go through that real quick. So here I have a DMX fixture. Each DMX fixture has its own number of channels that it will respond to. And in this case, this fixture is set up for 5 channels. So what that means is it'll have red, green, blue, white, and strobe. If you want them to overlap, you can keep your fixtures on the same channel and it'll do the same things. But if you want your fixtures to do independent things, then you need to have them on different channels. So the second fixture we have over here on the left is set to start off on channel 7, whereas the fixture on the right is set to start on channel 1. Every fixture has a different number of channels that it can communicate with and receive information. For this setup, we're going to go with a really simple thing. We're just going to set up 2 scenes. So we're going to set up 2 fixtures here, and then we're going to control them eventually through the Helix. We have a cable that's coming out of our DMX controller. It's a DMX out, and that's going into our first fixture. And then from that fixture, we have another daisy-chained DMX cable coming out to our second fixture. So the operations on different DMX controllers can vary wildly, but I'm going to go through how to set up this one really quick. So in order to control this controller, what we have here, if I go over here to scanner 1, you'll notice up here at the top I have different channels. For this particular DMX controller, how this works is this will control channel 1, which is the red on this one. Channel 7 controls the red on the other fixture, right? Channel 2 is the green, so that would be the green for both of these, 7, 2, and 8. And then if we wanted blue, blue is this guy, and it's 3 over here. We can set up whatever we want on the 2 different fixtures in this case, whatever we want them to light up as. All right, so let's say we want to do 1 red and 1 blue. In this example, what we're going to do is we're going to just have 2 scenes, and I'm going to show how we can switch between the scenes on the DMX controller, and then I'll show how to set it up on the Helix. That's what we're after. A couple of key things that are important to note for this particular controller. This little screen here has some information regarding the scene that we're on and the bank that we're on. So right now, if I go bank up or bank down, there's a whole bunch of banks that we can store information on. So that's our bank number over here. Then if we go over to here, so scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, scene 4, scene 5, whatever. So our scenes are over here on the left. The bank we're on is over here on the right. All right, so I'm going to start off with scene 1. All right, so scene 1, and we're also going to start off in bank 1. That's where we're going to start. So then we're going to program this guy. In order to program this guy, we're going to hold down the program button. All right, so you see I'm in scene 1, bank 1. I'm going to turn up the red. I'm going to turn up the blue. All right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit, in this particular controller, the MIDI add button. And then I'm going to hit scene 1. You'll see it flashes, and that tells me it recorded scene 1. Then we're going to do scene 2. Let's do something that makes it clear. So let's make them both, let's make them both green. All right. And so then we're going to go MIDI add. We're going to make that scene 2. And it flashes, and that tells me it recorded it. And again, we see we're on scene 2, bank 1. Then to get out of the program, we're going to hit the program button until it stops, right? And now it's flashing this little blackout button, so we hit blackout, and that'll make it so we can do our scenes. So now, I can turn off the scanner, and I can go back to my scene. So scene 1, right? And we see we're on scene 1, bank 1, scene 2, bank 1. That's it. Those are my 2 scenes, and there's nothing in scene 3. And so forth. So that's a really simple program, and that's how we set it up for these 2 lights. So now what we want to do is we want to go to the Helix and be able to control that. All right. Now there's lots of other things you can do. You can do chases, and you can control strobe and lots of other features. But the issue with a board like this one, so this is a very generic, very simple board, is that it only accepts MIDI note-on commands. So that's going to be a little bit different than, say, a interface that accepts program changes or other things like that. So the other thing that we need to know about the board is what MIDI channel it's listening on. So if you'll notice on the Helix, we have a MIDI out channel. So I'm literally having a MIDI cable that runs into the MIDI in on this guy right here. So this cable right here is running into here, and I'll show a picture of that later. But one piece of information we're absolutely going to need when we're dealing with the Helix is what MIDI channel is this thing going to be receiving information on. And the way to figure that out on this model is to hold down the MIDI button, and then you'll see it starts flashing over here, and then we can change the MIDI channel that it's listening on. All right, there are 16 different MIDI channels that it can receive information on, and I'm going to set this MIDI channel to MIDI channel 1 for the board. But this is the channel we're going to be listening on for the board. And then I hold down the MIDI button again, and now it will listen on MIDI channel 1 for information from any device that I want to send to it. So we're going to go to the Helix and show how to do this. All right, so here we are in the HX Edit software. So in this example, I'm going to start with this preset here, and it has several snapshots, which we can look through here. So I have a clean channel, which is going to be this top path. I have a distortion channel, which is this bottom path. And then I also have one snapshot, which is called my blackout. And if you'll notice, on the blackout one, I have the output set to minimum here. So they're completely shut off. So let's go back. So here we are in our clean snapshot. We want to be able to associate a scene with this snapshot. So what we want to do is we want to go to Window, Command Center. We're going to pull up the Command Center. And if you notice, there's different options we have in the Command Center. We could use the lightning bolts, but unfortunately the lightning bolts don't give us MIDI note on. They have MIDI CC, bank program. So if you're doing other MIDI programming changes, you can do those here in the instant commands. But what we need are down here on the foot switches. So if we go to foot switch, you'll notice one of the options here is note on. So that's what we're after. We want note on. The other thing we want to do is we want to be careful about which snapshot we're on up here at the top. So I'm going to go to note on, all right? And it has some default settings for the note on. I'm going to go to clean one because that's the first one we want to set up. All right, and the thing we want to make sure is on the board, on the DMX controller board, we had set it to MIDI channel 1. Now it turns out if you can control it here. So if you want to play it safe, you can control it here and set the MIDI channel to 1. If you look at the global settings on the Helix, you can actually use the bass, whatever the bass for the unit is. I believe the bass on my unit right now is set to 1, but to make sure that we have the correct MIDI channel, the safest thing to do is to change the MIDI channel here. Key idea here is I'm in clean, my snapshot 1. I've set my MIDI channel to 1. The other thing we want to do is on my DMX controller, scene 1, bank 1 is actually note C-1. That's one of the tricks. You have to figure out what the note is on the Helix that corresponds to the note command on your DMX controller. And I've shown a little screen of what the commands are on my controller, so we can reference those. Got to be real careful though. So from C-1 to G9 is 127 notes. But you do have to be careful. Sometimes online you'll find information about how these MIDI notes are mapped, and they might not align to what we have on the Helix. So just be careful there. But in any event, I know that bank 1, scene 1 on my DMX controller is MIDI note 0, which on the Helix is the lowest one, C-1. The other thing we want to set is we want to make sure this velocity is set to 127. And here's another key thing. We want to make sure this is switched to latching. That's it. Now we're set up here for clean 1. Let's go to our next snapshot, which is going to be distortion and scene 2. All right, so again, everything's reset. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to make sure I'm set to MIDI channel 1. Now I want scene 2, bank 1. So that's going to be one note above the lowest. All right, so in this case, C-sharp -1. All right, and again, we want our velocity set to 127. We want to again be on latching, and we're good to go there. Then we're going to go to blackout. So the blackout on my controller is the second to last note. So the way to do that is just to go all the way up here, then click down 1. So F#9. Again, I want the velocity set to 127. I want to be set to latching. And that's it. That's everything we need to do in the command center. There's one other trick that we're going to need to do, but we got to go back to the Helix to see that. So everything looks good here. So I'm going to close this. Again, we're going to make sure we've saved it. So File, Save, Preset. And now let's go check out how it behaves on the Helix. A couple of key things I wanted to point out. One, we can go over to our command center and we can see that all of the properties that we associated with our foot switches are up here, right? So we have our MIDI channel, our note, our velocity, latching, all that information is here for our specific foot switch. The other thing I wanted to point out, though, is if we go to the command center and then we go to global settings and then we scroll over to MIDI, all right, what we'll see here is that my MIDI bass channel is indeed set to 1. So you could just set everything in MIDI bass and be fine on for each snapshot in each case. But if this is different and you want to make sure that everything's coming through correctly, you can adjust it as I showed earlier. The other key things that I would show here is that we want to make sure that we are able to send our MIDI information. Our MIDI PC send is set both USB and MIDI cable for a DMX controller like the one that I showed today. The only other thing I wanted to mention is we want to make sure that we have our MIDI out right now set up correctly. All right, so this is signal view here for this particular preset. Let's go to snapshot mode. So these are the snapshots that we have. And right now, if I were to click on any of these snapshots, they would do nothing with my lights. Nothing happens, even though they're assigned in the command center. So there's a trick, the key trick for making this work. So the key step that we need in order to make it so they actually connect to the lights, even though we have it set up in the command center, is to go into stomp mode. So I have the Helix right now set up in 8 snapshots or 8 stomps. So when I go into stomp mode, what you'll notice here is this note is actually off. So I have to turn it on. Then I go back to snapshot mode, change to this snapshot. Then I go back to stomp mode and we'll turn that note on. Then I go to this snapshot, the blackout, and I'm going to turn that guy on in stomp mode. There we go. And now let's see what this would sound like. So say we're going to start off on our clean. So here we go. We're going to play a little bit of clean. So pretty cool, right? And then if we want to stop it all, blackout. You can do lots of other things with this as well, right? We can control chases. We could do obviously lots more scenes. There are some limitations because this device is only using note on, MIDI note on. That's a challenge in some ways because you can't send program information like you can with, say, a more advanced board or with the software mode. So very cool, very effective, really powerful way to use the Helix to do lots of interesting things without needing a computer at all once you've got it set up, right? So you have your lights, you have your board, your Helix, boom, you can run your light show.